We are igniting the blockchain. This is the Crypto Woman, your host. Join me and my guests as we talk about everything related to cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. Nothing said on this podcast is legal advice or investment advice. Do your own research. Have fun and let's get started. This is the Crypto Woman, otherwise known as Elizabeth. And today I am with Susan Eustis, otherwise known as the inventor of the electronic voting machine, and perhaps soon to be known as the inventor of the blockchain voting system that we might just be able to apply and use for our presidential 2020 election. I'm so happy you're with me here today, Susan.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, I did meet you at a blockchain conference and we did talk and demonstrate a voting app.
Yeah.
But the most interesting thing about that first meeting was the photos that you shared with me, newspaper clippings of you as a young woman introducing the world to an electronic voting system. Can you give a little bit about that history and what made you do it and how you did it?
Sure. I was selling voting machines at the time, and I knew how the machines worked because they would break. And I was a salesperson out in the field, and the engineer back at the factory, he couldn't come out to the field. And his name was Tex, and I call him and I'd say, Tex, what do I do now? And he got stuck. These machines had been invented by Tom Edison, 100 years earlier. And all the knowledge of how they worked had been lost. The people knew how to make them, but they didn't know why they worked at all. They had no idea. So basically, Tex and I worked it out together. Oh, here's what you do to do 50 candidates on a ballot. Oh, and gradually I learned the inside of the machine, what the connections were, why they worked, why you needed them. There were about 50 different interlocks. We called them interlocks in those days that prevented fraud and prevented error. And it was a very sophisticated mechanical solution and very difficult to unwind, very difficult to solve the ballot issues that arose from time to time. I was up in New England and we had some very strange ballot combinations, and New York. And eventually I traveled all over the US solving voting machine problems for people and writing step-by-step procedure manuals. But in the process of doing that, I got a good understanding of what it takes to run an accurate election that prevents fraud, that prevents people from manipulating the ballots. So the paper ballots were just awful. The paper ballots you could manipulate in thousands of different ways. People would tell me, well, Uncle Fred, he's got a little piece of lead under his finger and he keeps invalidating the ballots that are for the other party. And I really don't want to throw Uncle Fred in jail. It would be bad for the dinner table at Thanksgiving to throw Fred in jail. Let's get mechanical machines in here that will prevent fraud. So then I knew the importance of preventing fraud, and I knew that we had a piece of equipment that did it, and I just copied the mechanical interlock solutions and made them electronic. It wasn't too hard to design circuits that were, and actually we did it in hardware and software. So we had a hardware solution and then we did a software solution. The people I worked with were Paul Horowitz and Winfield Hill. And they later became very famous at writing their book called The Electronics. It's the Bible of electronics.
Okay.
Hill and Horowitz. You ask anyone, they know who that is. So those guys were very smart, and we did. And then my husband, too, my to-be husband at that time, did the software for it. And we had a hardware solution, we had a software solution, and we just implemented all the interlocks. And so those interlocks have not changed. We still need the same interlocks and the same protections as we move to a solution for cell phone voting. We don't have a really good cell phone voting solution that works for everyone. With a coronavirus, we need a solution that everyone can sit down in their house and say, okay, send me my ballot. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to send it back to you and have it be secure. So it's nice to have that knowledge inside my head. It's nice to know, yes, we need to have this. We need to have that. And because there's 50 interlocks and maybe thousands of other protections, it's not a simple thing to build. It's not something that anyone can just say, oh, I do banking, so of course I can do voting. No, we need to understand the different kinds of ballots and that kind of stuff.
It was a very welcome invention when it was introduced to the world in the late 1960s. But since then, things have changed, and there's a real concern that this can be hacked now. And can you tell us how easy is it to hack the electronic system?
Well, the electronic systems have a number of protections, but not everybody implements the protections. So that's when you find a trouble, is if you don't have the two opposing parties watching all the time. Say the machines are in a warehouse at 3 a.m. in a locked warehouse. Well, if someone breaks into the warehouse and cuts the seals and changes the inside of the machine so that it'll vote for a different guy, and then puts the seals back on, and the changes he makes, if they make it so that the machine acts nice before the election when you're testing it, and after the election when you're testing it, but it doesn't act so nice during the election, then you have a problem. And that's because you have a system that's not being watched in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. in a warehouse.
So it's not as much the technology, but it's the accessibility to the machines.
Sure, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of concern right now about voting in the upcoming presidential election here in the United States. And when you and I met at a blockchain conference, we talked about blockchain becoming part of that solution. How are you imagining that blockchain will be part of the cell phone voting?
Well, blockchain is extremely useful because it makes fraud detectable. It's not that it prevents the fraud. The way you prevent the fraud is by having people from opposing parties able to detect any kind of intrusion. And what the blockchain does is it watches at 3 a.m. Excuse me. Yes. Well, with the blockchain, you want to store the ballot in the blockchain. Blockchain is a little difficult to use all the time because it doesn't scale very well. But in terms of throwing the ballots into the blockchain and keeping them there, they go in and they're secure. You have to put them in and mix them up as you put them in so that it's not detectable how someone voted. But there are ways to manage that. And then once the ballot is in the blockchain, no one can go in and fuss with it without detection. Mm-hmm. And so that the 3 a.m. scenario that I just described, it doesn't work. You know, the guys that are trying to hack, the people that are trying to change the outcome in their own favor can no longer do it without detection. And once you see that somebody's been in there, it can usually figure out who it was or prevent them from going in at all.
So it's the security of the audit trail, really.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to be used for.
And that's what people don't think about with paper ballots. They love to hold the ballot in their hand and say, oh, it's wonderful, I marked it. But they don't look at the audit trail. That audit trail is just terribly vulnerable. And the same with the electronic machines. Your audit trail is not protected. Now we have really good new technology that we should be applying to voting.
And you and some others are applying this and hope to have this in place in time for the 2020 elections, and are even starting to demo it tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll come back. Yeah, we're going to demo it today to people. We'll come back and demo it to you whenever you want.
And you're going to be introducing this to all of the state election officials?
Yes, we're going to send it out to all the states, maybe today.
That's exciting. I'll have to hurry and get this
Sure.
podcast published today to make it relevant, right? So
Okay.
we can do that. Today is actually April 24th,
Yes.
2020, just so we have a timestamp here on this podcast, and we shall see how it happens.
Can I say something for a minute?
Yes, you may.
So one of the things I've tried to do with my life is be a mentor to other women, and I've done a lot of work starting women's groups in technology. But one woman I remember in particular came from Japan, and her boss brought her over, and we had dinner together. He and she and me, and she became a boss inside his company. And one of the things, and I just thought, oh, this is a nice girl, nice to have dinner. But lately, it's become clear to me that was probably pretty important to that girl to see that another woman could run a company, and it probably meant she's always been so nice to me since then. And I realized, it probably meant quite a bit to her. And so I want to encourage women to go out and be leaders. And even if you do little things like eating with someone that it doesn't feel important to you, but keep moving, keep things going in that direction.
What wise words, and encouraging to women right now. I think that there's a little bit of a sense, at least in the United States, that maybe we've suffered some setbacks as women in the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are relevant words right now too. Keep on going and keep on encouraging each other.
Let's band together, even if it's on Zoom.
Even if it's on Zoom, that's right. These coffee dates that we're having on Zoom, they're great. We'll have to have a coffee date sometime, Susan. Yeah. Technology is taking us some interesting places, both in the workplace and for fun and entertainment. And certainly during this coronavirus, we need a little bit of fun and entertainment too.
We need lots of fun.
Yeah, we do. And I have a sense, though, that you have a lot of fun with your work.
Oh, I love my work. I absolutely adore it.
Can you talk a little bit about your own personal values and the integrity of the voting system, how it all lines up?
Yeah, I always try to run my life with integrity. I always try to tell the truth and just, that's it, to look my daughter's a scientist. I try to look at things from a scientific perspective. I run a research company. We try to be very thorough in what we say so the things we say are right. I think it's important not to just spew out garbage, that end up to be lies. Why not spend the time, keep your mouth shut if you don't know what you're talking about, and only say things that make sense, that are right. And that works well for me. That's all I can say. And I write. I have enormous treasure to me that I can write, and because I can go back, I can try to say something, and then I can look at it and I say, is this right? And I can work on it till I get it the way I want. When you're speaking, you just have to kind of say, but when you're writing, you can work and work and work to get it exactly right.
But tell me, have you published anything?
Oh, I publish market research studies all the time. You can go to my site, wintergreenresearch.com.
Okay.
And we have many studies up on new studies all the time.
That's good for us to know so that we can tap into your wisdom and your experience some other places too. Susan, as far as the technology that you're using for your blockchain supported voting app, which of the blockchain technologies are you looking at?
Well, we're looking at the stuff from the GBA. Gerard Dausch has wonderful blockchain implementations, and we're just using one of those. It's a closed system, but it integrates across the world with the other blockchain, both the closed and the open system. So integration is key. And the technology we're using to implement the voting is an integration technology. I've worked my entire life on message integration, making the messages go once and only once, make them secure. There's a lot of technology around that to make it work.
You must have been working pretty hard on this project since I last met you, because I think I met you about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I know from working on blockchain projects, to get it researched and off the ground and implemented in a way that is actually credible, trustworthy, and legal takes a lot of work. And a lot of people don't get them off the ground within a year's time. I know we've talked about this in another place, but can you speak a little bit about the credibility of your technology? I'll back up a little bit and say that there's a lot of concern right now about the reliability of voting apps, especially after what happened at the Iowa caucus and them pushing that app out too soon. Now, we know that you've been working on it for a year or more. I believe it was already in your mind and in progress when I met you a year ago. But how confident are you in the reliability of this technology and the timeliness?
Well, the time we need it now. I mean, there's no question that coronavirus is going to cause havoc with the November election. And I think we have to recognize that. But so it's timely, but that doesn't help it work. And the thing that we're eager to do is to get it out to the states that can do independent testing, that can jump up and down on it, can prove its value. We think that it will stand any test that anyone can throw at it, because it's been around 40 years. It's technology that's been well proven. The independent testing is what makes a huge difference. So we want to get it out to people and get them started adapting it to the local state situations.
And if people are interested in helping you test it, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, through the blockchain, join blockchain, and we have a set of standards, and they can follow what we're doing. We're publishing everything is open on the GBA site, and that's where we're inviting people to participate in this project, and to make sure we get it off the ground in a way that's viable for both political parties.
I am extremely interested in this, you know that, and to see a solution that could potentially work for us, because I'm also extremely concerned about what could potentially happen with our upcoming elections, especially with the additional challenges posed by the coronavirus and perhaps the repression of people actually going to the voting locations to vote. So I'm excited for this.
We think it's important to get people out to the polls.
Right.
And this is to do it virtually. To be able to do it remotely is fundamental at this point. It's a change. Life changes. It just does. And this is a major change.
It is a major change, and life does change. I think what we're finding out right now with the way that this coronavirus has turned the world completely upside down for a lot of people is that there are many people who are having a difficulty with change. But on the other hand, I think that given some time and some patience and some encouragements from other people, that we're finding ourselves to be more adaptable maybe than we thought we were. And I hope that's a good thing.
I think so. You look at children, children change every day. They grow, they learn things. I think we can learn from children how to adapt.
I know you have your grandchildren at home there with you, staying at home and homeschooling them. And I understand that you are the main teacher there.
Oh, yes.
Doing this. I think that's awesome. But tell me.
Math and reading.
Okay, I was just going to ask you about the subjects. How are you introducing your grandchildren to technology?
Oh, I have them do programming. There's a codable program, and I make them use that every day. And the washing machine broke, and their mother had to fix it. So they saw the washing machine in pieces and all the gears. She had to take the gears out and order new parts, and take the things off the back and order new parts. And so we had a flood in the basement, so she had to take the mother does it, not the father, and take the filters apart and see what was making it flood. And they saw her solve that problem. And she's a scientist. and the father's a programmer. So they just talk about that at the dinner table. They take the telescope out when we go out at night, look at the stars. There's just a lot of learning that goes on a daily basis. When things come up, you talk about it.
I think that's wonderful. I can't wait to see what your grandchildren turn out to be and what inventions they contribute to this world. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm going to keep up with you about the blockchain voting app,
Good.
Certainly, and can't wait for people to hear about it. I really, really wish you the best success. And for whatever it's worth, if I can help you in any way, let me know.
Well, you are helping, and thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Check out ignitingtheblockchain.com for materials referenced during this podcast and for a list of other conversations about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. See you around the block.